Hey, hope you guys are doing well. My name is David, and this is going to be the start of a series where I'm just going to be covering NBA teams and their rosters, what I think of them overall, and if there's any front office people that I think affect winning or the lack thereof, I'll cover them as well. My information is a lot of it's going to be from basketball reference and then just whatever I can scour up on individual teams' websites as to who's on what roster. So there may be some discrepancies between my numbers and yours or my rosters and yours. I apologize for that. I'm trying my best to be as accurate as I can. It's not very easy, believe it or not, or at least that's what I'm learning. Again, this is just kind of a giant learning thing for me. So if the quality's not really quite up to snuff, I apologize. I did spend quite a bit of time working on this, so all that said, I do hope you enjoy. If you like, subscribe, even leave a comment in any way, shape, or form, I'd greatly appreciate it. It means the world. That said, let's get right into it. So the Philadelphia 76ers are obviously my hometown team, and that should make it go without saying that I would want to cover them first, and I will be covering their roster first. I'll be giving you guys my opinions on the personnel as well as the floor and ceiling in general, just for how I think they'll perform this season. Alright, so firstly we've got Joel Embiid. And I love Joel. If you're a Sixers fan, honestly, at this point, he's the whole reason you're waking up. The dude's an absolute monster. Last year he was on a tear, obviously finished second in MVP voting. Dude averaged 28.5 points, which sounds really good as it is, but then you see the efficiency he did it on, and you're like, wow, this guy's got something else. He's absolutely an anchor for Philadelphia on both sides of the ball. And I think all of us are really relieved, or at least everybody in Philly, after we saw him sign that 4-year, $196 million extension. And I mean, hey, big man getting paid, he deserves it. Someone I'm not as happy for, however, we got Ben Simmons. I think anything that can be said about Ben Simmons has kind of already been said by somebody probably more knowledgeable about basketball, but as far as I'm concerned, the best trade scenario for Philly, that would be getting Damian Lillard. However, that trade's a little convoluted because you'd need to get Dame to want to come to Philadelphia, and that's kind of a really difficult thing to do. The package that we'd have to offer them would also very likely require both Thibault and Maxey, and I mean, if we lose Thibault, I'm going to lose my mind. So I was just throwing that one out there in case anybody from the front office ever ends up seeing this. We got Tobias Harris next, and last season was a better one. He kind of bounced back, which was good to see because he's been struggling at his Philadelphia tenure. He's honestly at his best in general when he's a third option for scoring. I think that's clear. With all the attention that Embiid was drawing on the inside and just draws in general, it really helped his efficiency numbers, not to mention the additions of Seth Curry, and that just really kind of made Harris's job a little easier. It was clear that when we had Josh Richardson on the floor last year, that just the shooting in general in the starting five, it really wasn't there, and it shrunk the floor a lot, and it made teams have a much easier time closing out on Harris. Then we have Seth Curry, really good shooter, and honestly, while he isn't somebody I would want to be handling most of the shot creation on a team, he did do a pretty good job stepping up when it mattered in the postseason especially. Overall, I think he's a plus just because, I mean, hey, more shooting can't hurt. So the next player is then Danny Green. Green is a little older, but he's a good shooter, so even though he's a little inconsistent at times, he is overall a plus for the Sixers just because of the added spacing. Matisse Thybulle is up next, and wow. Matisse really makes me love defense. He's genuinely one of my favorite players to watch. He wears the role of a defensive playmaker, and I'm honestly not sure how many players can wear that same title. The stats really will never show how good he is. He just does all of the little things perfectly on defense. It's one of those things that you would really need to watch to understand. I do hope offensively he is able to show that he's capable of more growth, especially with his three ball. That said, I'm happy with who he is now as a player. His defense is just so fun to watch, man. Next we have Tyrese Maxey, and Maxey's really interesting to me. He is thrown around a lot as one of those pieces in a Ben Simmons trade package, just kind of something to sweeten the deal to get a team to really buy in and say, alright, we want Simmons on our team, just give us a couple role guys too and we'll give you something good. I don't really wince when he's mentioned in the trade packages, but he has had good moments this season as far as scoring goes and just his playmaking. He could buy us a bucket at times when it seemed like nobody else could. That makes me excited to see where he'll develop. So there is some hesitancy to trade him away, but I realize at the end of the day, he's an asset that we might need to have to use. Next up, we have Shake Milton. Honestly, I'm kind of impartial on Milton. He has had his moments, but his efficiency has gone down a good deal, especially from the three-point line. And that did indeed end up hurting the second unit a little more than I would have liked. He, again, his good shot creation, but overall, kind of lukewarm on him. Korkmaz is another guy I kind of just feel lukewarm about. One moment he'll look like Steph Curry, and then the next he's shooting a shot as good as I do with the ladies. And if you're a Sixers fan or just a basketball fan in general, you absolutely don't want that. I feel like every time he gets the ball in his hands, he's liable to just pull a three if he's got like even an inch of space. Dude's really trigger happy, and it's not my favorite. Next up, we have Andre Drummond, and if I'm being honest, I think he was the worst signing of the offseason, not just for the Sixers, but just in general. A casual fan will look at his numbers and think, oh, this guy's probably a pretty good pickup. But honestly, if you've watched the dude play or followed any rhetoric or conversation around this dude's name, you know that his stats they're just empty. They don't contribute at all to winning. Not even to mention the fact that Embiid and Drummond have had this just one-sided beef that's constantly resulted in Drummond getting absolutely eviscerated. The Sixers also shared a picture of Embiid and Drummond meeting up after the signing, and the pain is so apparent on Joel's face that it's just funny. And I had to find it, and I had to share it with you guys. Embiid tweeted out at one point too, he was like, you know how much real estate I have in Andre Drummond's head? And I mean, just thinking about it now, it's just so comical that they decided to bring him in at all, even if it was on the minimum. It's just, I can't understand it. I'll never understand it. Next we have Jaden Springer, who is one of our rookies. I'm excited to see what the dude can do. In college, he led his team as far as efficiency went, and his creating ability was also pretty good, which is something that we'll definitely need more of, provided we give Simmons up. He's great vertical, he's great shooting, and he's got great defense. The only thing that I really want to see him hopefully work on once he hits the league is to get those turnover numbers down, because he was kind of a turnover machine in college. But, I mean, hopefully he'll acclimate and be able to change up his speed to keep up with the NBA. Next, we have Aaron Henry, and if I'm being completely transparent, I don't know much about the dude. From what I'm led to believe, he struggles shooting, but I also hear he plays good defense. So as far as fit goes, the jury's obviously still out. He hasn't really played a game yet. We'll see. Georges Niang, I hope I'm saying that right. We did pick him up, and from the stats that I've seen, he's a good shooter. He'll obviously space the floor for the second unit, which we obviously need a lot of that. His shooting splits are pretty solid, and his per 36 numbers also look pretty good, so that's a plus. Paul Reed and Isaiah Joe are both still really young, and they didn't get a lot of minutes minus garbage time for me to have an opinion on them one way or another. Then we have Mike Scott. Get rid of him, please, and thank you. Next, I'll quickly be addressing Doc Rivers. I don't think I'll be doing this for many of the coaches because I don't have strong opinions on a lot of them, but I disliked how stubborn he was with his 10-man rotation in the playoffs last year. His inability to properly adjust to situations was absolutely painful to watch. Not to mention he has 3-1 lead chokes under his belt. He's got 1-3-2 lead choke and a 2-0 lead choke, and he's lost 5 game 7s with the home court advantage, and that is including the bubble. I'm hoping the Sixers fire him at some point sooner, hopefully, rather than later. I was hoping they'd find a replacement for him this past offseason, but clearly they haven't. I guess Ben Simmons was just enough of a scapegoat, so Doc gets to keep his job for now. As far as the floor, based on how the Ben Simmons situation plays out and Embiid's health, if I'm being honest, you could be looking at a 7 or 8 seed, which is a really macabre way of looking at things, but it's with Philadelphia luck, anything's possible, and I view that as a very real possibility. With the addition, however, of the play-in tournament, if Embiid is injured, there's a dark reality where I think Philly could miss the playoffs. and I know, let me emphasize, this is an absolute worst case scenario. The 76ers odds of having that bad of luck is so low. But I mean, it's Philly. I feel like we always get the absolute worst luck. As far as the ceiling goes, however, you got a 4 seed, I think, and if you pushed it, you could get to the 3 seed. I think that the Bucks and the Nets are clearly better teams, and you could convince me that Miami and Atlanta could beat the Sixers out record-wise. The Knicks are also pretty interesting, provided their defense holds up, but even still, I'll give the edge to the Sixers. And yeah, that's really all I have for you guys today. One quick note before I let you all go. I do want to say that I don't know how consistently I'll be able to upload content on the channel. It's certainly more of a hobby and just something I'll be doing to get more familiar with editing software, but I mean, that aside, I do genuinely have a passion for the NBA, so hopefully that kind of bleeds through into the content and you guys will be able to see it. But either way, that said, I hope you all have a good one.